You know, there was a time not too long ago when simply standing up from my favorite chair felt like a gamble. I'd rise, just like any other day, and the room would tilt, my vision would blur, and I'd grip the wall like my life depended on it. At first, I brushed it off, just age catching up, right? But as the dizzy spells kept returning, and that strange, heavy feeling in my chest started creeping in more often, I began to worry. I didn't tell anyone at first, not my kids, not even my wife. I didn't want to be a burden. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. If you've ever felt that rush of dizziness when you get up, or the uneasy tightness in your chest, after walking across the room, I want you to know you're not alone. And more importantly, you're not powerless. What I discovered, what I want to share with you today, changed everything for me. And it all started with something so simple, so natural, you probably already have most of it in your kitchen. Before we get into it, let me say this. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm just here to share my story and some insights I've picked up along the way that might just change your life like they did mine. So if you can, stay with me until the end. Because sometimes the smallest changes have the biggest impact, and sometimes nature really does know best. I want to talk to you not just as someone who reads studies or gives advice, but as someone who's lived through this. I'm in my 70s now. I've spent a lifetime working, raising a family, paying bills, fixing leaks, and doing my best to stay healthy. But when your body starts throwing you curveballs in your later years, it's easy to feel like you're losing control. That's exactly how I felt before I found the drink that cleared my arteries and calmed that frightening dizziness. The funny thing is, this discovery didn't come from a flashy advertisement or a fancy new pill. It came from a quiet afternoon conversation with an old neighbor named Harold. Harold is one of those folks who doesn't say much, but when he does, you listen. We were sitting under the shade of a tree, sipping iced tea, when I casually mentioned the dizziness I'd been dealing with. He nodded, almost as if he had been waiting for me to bring it up. You ever tried that old apple cider mix? He asked like he was asking about the weather. I laughed. Apple cider? I asked. For dizziness? But Harold just smiled. It's not just for dizziness. It helps your blood move easier. Clears things out. Old-timers used it for a reason. Now let me pause here and say I was skeptical. I've been around long enough to know that not every folk remedy works. But there was something about the way Harold said it, something steady and sure, that made me curious. And truthfully, I didn't have much to lose. So I went home, looked it up, read a few articles, and even stumbled upon some studies from respected medical centers that hinted at the same thing. Could this drink, made from everyday ingredients, really help my arteries and my balance? The mix Harold told me about was simple. Warm water, a spoonful of raw honey, a splash of organic apple cider vinegar, a bit of lemon juice, and a pinch of ground cinnamon. I started taking it first thing in the morning before breakfast. Before coffee, just me and that cloudy little glass of golden brown liquid. It wasn't exactly tasty at first, but it grew on me. More importantly, what happened next was impossible to ignore. Within the first few days, the dizziness lessened. It didn't vanish overnight, but I started to notice that I didn't need to grab the wall when I stood up. I could move from the couch to the kitchen without that woozy feeling clouding my steps. After a few weeks, my walks became easier. My hands felt warmer. I could breathe a little deeper. And that tightness in my chest? Gone. But let me be clear, this wasn't some miracle cure. It was a helper, a partner in my healing. I also began drinking more water, walking every day, and cutting back on the salty snacks I used to enjoy a little too much. Still, there's no doubt in my mind that this natural drink played a powerful role in opening things up inside me. It made my blood flow easier, my heart work less hard, and my mornings feel more grounded. Now, why does this drink work? Well, Apple cider vinegar has acetic acid, which some studies suggest may help lower blood pressure and improve circulation. Honey has antioxidants and natural anti-inflammatory properties. Lemon juice gives a good dose of vitamin C, which supports your blood vessels. Cinnamon? It helps regulate blood sugar and is known to support heart health. None of these ingredients are magic on their own, but together, they create a natural synergy that gently supports your cardiovascular system. One of the best things about getting older is that you become more attuned to your body. You start noticing the little signs it gives you, signs that, years ago, you might have ignored. The dizziness, the fatigue, the occasional flutter in your chest, these aren't just random occurrences. They're messages. And if you slow down and listen, they'll tell you exactly what your body needs. For me, that message was clear. Slow down, simplify, and nourish your body with what's real. I spent decades eating whatever was convenient. Fast food, boxed meals, too much sugar, not enough water. But your arteries aren't made of steel, they're delicate, living pathways. And just like old plumbing, they get clogged and sluggish when neglected. That's why, especially after 60, we need to treat our hearts like the engines they are. And engines need clean fuel. I remember reading a passage from Dr. Dean Ornish, a renowned heart specialist, who said, "Your body has a remarkable ability to begin healing itself, and the healing process can start at any age." That line stuck with me, because it's easy to believe that once something starts going wrong, it's just downhill from there. But that's not true. Healing doesn't belong to the young. It belongs to the willing. I also think back to my grandmother, who lived well into her 90s. She didn't take many pills. She cooked with olive oil, walked barefoot in the garden, and started every morning with warm lemon water and a prayer. Her hands were worn, her back bent, but her heart was strong, steady as a drum. I never realized as a boy how wise her ways were. But now I understand that. So if you're waking up feeling dizzy, if your steps feel unsure, if you've been told your arteries might be narrowing or your blood pressure is creeping up, don't wait until it gets worse. You have more power than you think. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. Just start with one small habit. Maybe that means making this natural morning drink part of your routine. Maybe it means choosing a handful of berries instead of cookies. Or just walking to the mailbox twice a day instead of once. Little by little, your body will respond. You'll feel it in your energy, in the way your hands stop tingling, in the confidence you feel getting out of bed. It's not about chasing youth, it's about protecting your independence, your clarity, your calm. And let me say something else, something I've learned the hard way. Don't keep your struggles to yourself. If you're feeling lightheaded or fatigued, tell someone. Don't hide it like I did. There's nothing weak about needing support. In fact, it's one of the wisest things you can do. And that's part of why I'm sharing this today, not just to give you a recipe, but to remind you that you're not facing this alone. If you're still with me, thank you. Truly. It means a lot. And if you know someone else who might be struggling, quietly, maybe a friend, a partner, or someone at church, share this with them. You never know whose life you might touch with a few simple words or an honest story. Now, let's talk about what actually happens inside your body as you age and why this drink makes such a difference. You see, your arteries are like soft, flexible highways carrying oxygen-rich blood from your heart to the rest of your body. But over the years, these highways can get stiff and narrow. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens little by little thanks to years of eating processed foods, sitting too long, smoking in the past, or simply letting stress linger in your system. That stiffening and narrowing of the arteries is called atherosclerosis. It's a big word, but its effects are simple. Your blood can't move as easily. Your heart has to work harder, and you start to feel it usually first in ways you don't expect. Maybe your hands or feet are always cold. Maybe you get winded walking up the stairs. Or maybe, like me, you feel dizzy when you stand up. All these signs point to circulation issues that can often be improved with the right steps. Now, when I started taking this drink, I didn't expect a miracle. I just hoped for a little relief, but I got more than that. I began to feel clear. That's the best way I can describe it. Clear-headed, clear-breathed, clear-hearted. And it wasn't just about circulation. That small act of mixing up my drink every morning became a ritual reminder that I was still in charge of my health. You know how routines can become grounding? That's what this drink did for me. It reminded me to slow down, to pay attention, to listen to what my body was trying to say. And in that stillness, something else began to shift my mindset. I stopped thinking of aging as something to fight. Instead, I started thinking of it as something to embrace. But with wisdom, with choices that support my body instead of working against it. And here's where things get even more interesting. As I made this drink a habit, I started sleeping better. My legs didn't cramp as much at night. I stopped needing to nap every afternoon. I even began waking up before my alarm with more clarity and motivation. I told my wife and she laughed, "You're acting like you're 60 again." I told her, "I'm not trying to be young. I'm just trying to be well." That's the beauty of nature. It doesn't promise to turn back the clock, but it does help you show up fully for the time you have. I also started sharing this drink with a few close friends from church. One of them, Martin, had been dealing with something similar: dizziness, foggy thinking, and fatigue. He was skeptical at first, just like I was. But after a couple of weeks he called me and said, "You know, I don't know what's in that stuff, but I just walked around the block without stopping, and I haven't done that in a year." That kind of thing brings tears to your eyes. Because it's not about the walk, it's about what the walk represents. Independence, life, hope. Now, if you're wondering how to make the drink, let me walk you through it again, step by step. All you need is 1 cup of warm, not hot filtered water, 1 tablespoon of raw, unfiltered apple cider vinegar, the kind with the mother in it, 1 teaspoon of raw honey, the juice of half a lemon, a pinch of cinnamon. Stir it well, let it sit for a minute. Then drink it slowly on an empty stomach, preferably in the morning. You don't need to chug it. Just let your body take it in gently. If the flavor is too strong at first, you can add a bit more honey or dilute it with more water until you get used to the taste. Remember, consistency is key. Don't expect 1 cup to fix everything. Give it a few weeks. Let your body adjust. Think of it like watering a plant. The change might be quiet at first, but one day you'll notice your leaves are greener and your roots feel stronger. Of course, I always say this too: listen to your doctor. Natural remedies are wonderful, but they're not a replacement for medical advice. They work with your body, not against it. I shared my experience with my cardiologist, and he actually encouraged me to keep it up, especially since it supported the lifestyle changes he had already suggested. And speaking of lifestyle changes, I want to gently encourage you to think about what else you can pair with this drink to support your heart. Maybe it's drinking more water during the day. Maybe it's walking just 10 more minutes than you usually do. Maybe it's calling a friend instead of sitting alone with your worries. You see, the body and mind are deeply connected. When your blood flows better, your thoughts feel clearer. And when your thoughts are clearer, your emotions settle. It's all part of the same story. I know it can feel overwhelming sometimes, especially if you're dealing with multiple health issues, or you've been told that your arteries are 60% blocked, or your blood pressure is creeping higher despite all your efforts. But let me remind you of something I learned from reading The Blue Zone's a book about the world's longest living people. Most of them don't take a ton of supplements. They don't rely on pills. They rely on simple, daily habits, connection with others, whole foods, and natural movement. That's it. Nothing fancy. Just consistency. And that's what this drink became for me, a symbol of consistency. A daily act of love toward my own body. Now, before we wrap up this part of the story, I want to leave you with something that's not about ingredients or circulation, but about purpose. Because when we talk about health, real health, we can't just talk about the physical body. We have to talk about why we get up in the morning. What keeps our hearts beating in more ways than one? For me, it's my grandchildren. It's wanting to be able to hold their hands without trembling, to kneel down beside them and tie their shoes without feeling lightheaded, to be around long enough to hear their stories and share mine. Whatever your reason is, whoever you love, whatever you cherish, that's what this drink is really for. That's what all these little habits are about, not perfection, not vanity, just the quiet, steady choice to keep showing up, to keep living with dignity, with clarity, with strength. So tomorrow morning, when you wake up, I hope you'll try it. Mix the drink. Sit quietly while you sip it. Let your body wake up slowly. And as the warmth spreads through your chest, think about all the morning still ahead of you. I'm so glad you're still with me. That tells me you care not just about getting through the day, but about feeling better in your own body, your own rhythm. That care, that intention, is powerful. And now that we've talked about the drink itself and how it started changing my body, I want to talk about what it really changed in my life. How I felt about getting older. You see, dizziness, clogged arteries, fatigue, these aren't just physical symptoms. They start to chip away at your confidence. You stop trusting your legs. You avoid outings you used to enjoy. You stay seated when others stand. And slowly, without realizing it, you start shrinking your world. I've been there. I remember skipping church 2 weeks in a row because I was too embarrassed to admit that the dizziness was back, and I was scared I'd fall in front of everyone. But once I started feeling that internal shift, that lightness returning, I began stepping back out. And the people around me noticed. My daughter said, "Dad, you look better, brighter." That word really stuck with me, because that's how it felt. Like someone had turned a dimmer switch up in my chest and mind. Now I want to talk about another piece of this puzzle, something often overlooked: hydration. If you're dealing with lightheadedness when getting up, you might actually be dehydrated. As we age, our sense of thirst weakens. We don't get that dry mouth or craving for water the way younger folks do, but our bodies still need it more than ever. Water keeps your blood volume healthy, your blood pressure stable, and your brain alert. Without enough of it, you might find yourself dizzy, confused, or even anxious without knowing why. Pairing this morning drink with plenty of water throughout the day created a kind of harmony in my body. I didn't realize just how off balance I had become until that balance started returning. And let's not forget movement. I know it's harder now. The knees creak, the back complains, and some days just getting out of bed feels like a chore. But movement doesn't have to mean exercise. It can mean stretching your arms above your head, rolling your ankles while seated, or just walking slowly to the window and standing in the sunlight. Every bit of movement tells your body, I'm still here. I still want to live fully. I read a quote once from Dr. William Lee, the author of Eat to Beat Disease. He said, "Food is not just fuel, it's information." That made me think maybe the same is true for motion, for breath, for care. Maybe everything we do is sending our body a message. Are we investing in it, or are we neglecting it? That drink, those walks, that extra glass of water, they're all messages of support to your arteries, your brain, your balance. And over time, your body starts listening. Your heart starts responding. And you begin to trust yourself again one evening. Not long after I started this journey, I was outside pulling weeds from the flower bed, something I hadn't done in ages. The air was cool, the birds were quiet, and for the first time in a long time, I felt steady on my feet. Not young, not invincible, but steady. And I remember whispering to myself, "Thank you." Not to anyone in particular. Just a quiet thank you for making it through the fog. That's what I want for you. Not perfection, not some unrealistic version of health, but steadiness. The ability to walk into your kitchen without gripping the counter. To bend down and pick something up without the world spinning. To stand in the shower without fear. 2. Feel like yourself again. And yes, if you're wondering, there were hard days too. Days when I skipped the drink. Days when the dizziness returned, or I got frustrated with how slow the progress felt. That's part of healing. It's not a straight line. But every time I got back up and made the drink again, I was telling myself, keep going. Now, a word about medication. If you're on blood pressure meds, cholesterol pills, or anything else related to your heart and circulation, please don't stop taking them because of what I'm sharing here. This drink is a companion, not a replacement. Think of it like adding a walking stick to a hike. It helps you move forward with more stability, but it doesn't do the walking for you. Always talk to your doctor before adding anything new, especially if you have diabetes, kidney problems, or are on medication that affects potassium or sodium levels. I told my own doctor everything, what I was taking, how I was feeling, and he smiled and said, "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." That was all I needed to hear. And now, months later, I no longer wake up afraid of standing up too quickly. I walk more, breathe better, and feel less foggy. My chest feels open. My steps feel grounded. I'm more present with my family. I sleep deeper. And I'm back to gardening a little slower than before, sure, but with joy. So I want to invite you to begin. Not perfectly, not urgently, but faithfully. Try this simple recipe. Let it become your morning ritual. Pair it with stillness, sunlight, and movement, and give it time. Healing doesn't shout. It whispers. And if you listen closely, your body will tell you it's grateful. Stick around, because next I want to talk about what not to eat if you want to keep your arteries clear and your balance strong. These foods might surprise you, and avoiding them could be just as powerful as starting this drink. Let's talk now about the other side of the coin, what you might stop doing, or at least cut back on, if you want real results. Because as powerful as that morning drink can be, it's even more effective when you avoid the things that work against it. It's like rowing a boat. You can paddle as hard as you want, but if there's a leak letting water in, you're still going to struggle. Some of the foods we've grown up with, the ones that have been part of our lives for decades, may now be slowing us down, clogging our arteries, and stirring up that dizzy, heavy feeling. Let's start with a common one: processed meats. Ham, bacon, sausages, deli meats, they taste good, no doubt about that. But most of them are packed with sodium and preservatives that stiffen the walls of your arteries and raise your blood pressure. I used to eat a ham sandwich every day for lunch. Simple, tasty, familiar. But once I learned how much sodium and nitrates were in those thin slices, I realized I was making my heart work over time. I started swapping in grilled chicken, beans, or even egg salad with avocado instead. My blood pressure dropped a few points in the first couple of weeks alone. Then there's sugar. And I'm not just talking about candy or desserts. I mean hidden sugars in cereals, bottled sauces, even healthy yogurts. Sugar inflames the inside of your arteries, making them more prone to plaque buildup. That inflammation also triggers fatigue and mental fog, which many seniors mistake for just aging. But I can tell you firsthand when I cut back on sugar. and replaced it with natural sweeteners like honey in small amounts, my mind cleared up. The drink we've been talking about has honey, but just enough to support healing, not so much that it overwhelms your system. Another culprit? Refined oils like those used in fried foods and packaged snacks. I know how tempting it is to reach for chips or fries. They're salty, crunchy, and familiar. But these oils oxidize quickly and cause stress inside your blood vessels. I used to think olive oil was just for fancy cooking. Now it's my go-to. I drizzle it on vegetables, toast, even soups. It's full of healthy fats that protect the heart rather than clog it. One of the biggest surprises for me, though, was how certain low-fat foods were actually hurting me. I'd been buying fat-free dressings, fat-free crackers, thinking I was doing myself a favor. But many of these foods are loaded with added sugars and artificial ingredients to make up for the missing flavor. And those fake ingredients? They confuse your body, mess with your metabolism, and do nothing to help your circulation. I went back to basics: whole foods, things my grandmother would recognize. A real apple. A handful of nuts. A bowl of oats made from scratch, not from a packet. I want to be honest with you, it's not easy at first. Change takes effort. There were mornings I reached for old habits before I remembered my new intentions. But every time I made the better choice, even just once a day, I felt stronger. And over time, those better choices became automatic. It's also important to know why these foods matter so much now. After age 60, our metabolism slows. Our arteries lose elasticity. Our bodies don't bounce back the way they used to. That's not defeat, it's just a shift. And it means we need to be more intentional. Food either fuels your healing or feeds your decline. But you're the one choosing what goes on your plate. I once heard Dr. Mark Hyman, a well-respected physician, say, "The most powerful medicine is at the end of your fork." That made me look at my meals differently, not as chores or restrictions, but as chances. Every meal became a chance to support my heart. Every glass of water became a gift to my brain. Every time I passed up the cookie and reached for a bowl of berries instead, I was choosing clarity, steadiness, and energy. Now, I'm not saying you need to eat like a monk. I still have a piece of dark chocolate every now and then. I enjoy a slice of cake at my granddaughter's birthday. But the difference is, I've found balance. I know what fuels me and what fogs me. And that wisdom, that's the reward for paying attention. As your arteries begin to heal, as your circulation improves and your energy lifts, you'll begin to notice something else too. Your confidence returns. You'll stand up faster, walk farther. You'll feel safer in your body. And when you feel safe in your body, everything else feels easier. Conversations, sleep, laughter, connection. That brings me to something deeply personal. A few months after starting this routine, I took a road trip with my wife. Just a couple of hours to see the lake where we used to camp when our kids were small. We hadn't done that in years, partly because of how I'd been feeling. But this time, I felt ready. The fresh air, the long walk along the water, the way we sat and watched the sun dip low over the trees, it all felt brighter, fuller. Wasn't worrying about my balance. I wasn't holding back. I was living, and that really is what this whole thing is about. Not just lowering blood pressure or stopping the dizziness. It's about restoring life. Feeling steady enough to laugh again, to walk with someone you love, to be part of the world instead of watching it go by. So yes, this drink made a difference. But the real healing came from a series of choices. The drink, the water, the food, the movement, the sleep, the sunlight, and most of all the belief that I deserve to feel better. And so do you. When we reach our 60s, 70s, and beyond, we start to notice more than just aches and pains. We notice quiet things like loneliness creeping in or that old feeling of usefulness starting to slip away. The world moves fast, and sometimes it feels like it's leaving us behind. Maybe we're not working anymore. Maybe friends have moved or passed. Maybe we sit in silence more often than we used to. And that silence can be heavy. I felt that heaviness, especially when I didn't feel well, when my body wasn't cooperating, when dizziness kept me seated and fear of falling kept me from even stepping outside. It wasn't just my balance that was off, it was my spirit. I felt smaller, invisible. I began to question whether my best days were behind me, but something remarkable happened once I started paying attention to my health again. Not aggressively, not with guilt or punishment, but with care. That morning drink was my first act of kindness toward myself in a long time. It didn't just help my arteries. It helped me remember myself. I began to feel like I mattered again, like I still had things to do, people to love, moments to enjoy. You see, when we choose to care for our bodies, we're also choosing to respect our story. Everything you've lived through, the heartbreak, the hard work, the victories and mistakes, it's all brought you here. And your body, though older now, still carries you. It's asking to be supported, not abandoned. And when you respond with love, real, practical love, you start to feel whole again. I've talked with so many people who say, well, I'm too old to change now, or, what's the point? Let me tell you the point. The point is freedom. The freedom to walk without fear, to hug without hesitation, to laugh without running out of breath, to be present with your grandchildren, your partner, your faith community, or simply yourself. And it's never too late. Never. One of my favorite books is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. He writes, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. That line hit me hard when I read it. I couldn't control the fact that I was aging. I couldn't change that my arteries had started to narrow. But I could change how I responded. I could stand up, even if slowly, and begin making new choices. Not just for my health, but for my dignity. And that's really what all of this is about, isn't it? Dignity. Not depending on others more than necessary. Not feeling trapped in your own body. Being able to live on your terms. You might be thinking, okay, this all sounds good, but what if I fall off track? And the answer is, you will. We all do. There were days I skipped the drink, days I ate too much sugar, days I felt discouraged. But I didn't stay there. I just started again. Every day is a new invitation to return to what heals you. Even today, I still start my morning with that warm drink. Not just for the physical benefits, but because it reminds me who I am. A person who values life. A person who wants to live, not just exist. So here's what I want to leave you with. If you're dealing with dizziness, poor circulation, or a foggy mind, know that it doesn't have to be permanent. This natural drink, paired with simple changes, can offer real relief. But more than that, you can offer yourself relief. You can choose to stop ignoring the signs. You can choose to stop shrinking your world out of fear. You can choose to start walking again, talking again, laughing again. And every small act of care you give yourself is a message to your spirit. I still matter. Because you do. Your story isn't over. It's still unfolding. And you have so much more to experience, give, and enjoy. I hope you try the drink. I hope you take that first step. But more than anything, I hope you believe deep in your bones that healing is still possible. That peace is still possible. That strength is still possible. And if you ever feel doubt creeping in, just remember this. I was right where you are. I know what it's like to feel unsure, tired, frustrated. But I also know what it's like to wake up one morning and feel steady again, clear, hopeful. So tomorrow, before the rush of the day begins, pour yourself that warm glass. Sip slowly, breathe deeply, and whisper these words to yourself. I'm still here. I'm still healing. And I am worth the care I give myself. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for trusting me with your time. If you found this helpful, please consider sharing it with someone else, someone who might be silently struggling, just like I was. Sometimes, the simplest words can be the beginning of someone else's healing. Take good care of yourself. And as always, stay steady and keep going.